What is poppin', YouTube? Back again with another video. Today we are doing my top 5 breakout players for 2023 fantasy football. I give you 5 players, I give you some running backs, I give you some wide receivers, I give you a quarterback and a tight end. So make sure you stay to the end, hear my analysis on all 5, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Best free way to support the channel. You're going to want to be here for all of your redraft content coming this summer and fall. Let's go. My first player is going to be Chris Godwin. Now, Chris Godwin is coming off of 2 amazing seasons with Tom Brady, where each and every season, everyone's like, Chris Godwin is a top 15 redraft wide receiver. Happens Tom Brady ends up retiring, and now everyone seems to be off of Chris Godwin because we do not know who his quarterback is going to be. We're thinking Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield. And we have seen what happens when Baker Mayfield is a quarterback with elite level options. We can look directly to Odell Beckham and say when he's with elite level options in his offense, he doesn't support them as a quality fantasy football wide receiver. Now, for me, I think this whole philosophy with Chris Godwin is just a little bit skewed. We look at last year, 14.9 fantasy points per game, put him as the wide receiver 15. The year before that, 17.3, wide receiver 7. The year before that, 15.9, put him as the wide receiver 15 on a points per game basis. But the year before that, let us not forget, back in 2019, Jameis Winston was the starter. Now, Jameis Winston put up the 30 for 30, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, but Chris Godwin was a wide receiver 2 with 19.6 fantasy points per game. In the last 2 years, especially in Tampa Bay, now I can't look at this directly for last year, but last year he was coming off of an ACL tear. But the years previous to that, I mean, when you're competing with targets with Mike Evans, Robert Gronkowski, playoff Lenny, and a super high-powered offense, you're not going to be getting all the targets. But even still, last year had 142 targets, which is an elite level target share. So what happens this year? The Bucs are not going to be good. Let's be completely honest, ladies and gentlemen. The Bucs are going for Caleb Williams, and with them going for Caleb Williams, the team's just going to be bad. If the team's bad, they're going to fall behind. If they fall behind, they're going to have to throw the ball. So the fact of the matter that we're saying, oh my goodness, we're seeing those videos of Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield not be able to hit a receiver. Come on, guys. Be drafting Chris Godwin. He's going to finish as a top 15 wide receiver. Currently in underdog drafts right now, Chris Godwin is going as wide receiver 29, which is essentially at his floor. Could it be worse? Yes, I think it could be worse. Come on, guys. We are taking Chris Godwin. My second breakout player for 2023 fantasy football is going to be J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, coming off of last season, that ACL tear, only put up 10.2 fantasy points per game. Now, we saw all the videos of him not being able to outrun anybody. He didn't have the same type of explosion. Everyone that talks fantasy knows it by this point because we've been saying it over and over and over again. But year 2, after an ACL tear, is really where that recovery and that acceleration, that burst starts to come back. We saw it last season with Saquon, finally hit him. Same exact thing is going to happen for J.K. Dobbins. Now, the offense around J.K. Dobbins has gotten way better. So you're going to say, well, Caleb, I don't think that's necessarily going to be great with the touches. But adding Odell Beckham, adding Zay Flowers, adding Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator. Yes, J.K. Dobbins has never caught passes out of the backfield. Yes, J.K. Dobbins has a lot of goal line work stolen by Lamar Jackson. But that still is not a reason. If the offense is going to be super efficient, if Baltimore Ravens can get back to being that top 5, top 6 rushing offense based on the fact they're a lot more elite, they're letting Lamar call the plays, they're going to be a lot more air raid. That's going to open up the line of scrimmage. If the offense is just a little bit more efficient, J.K. Dobbins gets in the end zone just a little bit more, we could be talking about someone that has a low-end RB1 upside, and you're not even having to draft him like that. J.K. Dobbins is currently going off the board as RB18, which for me just feels a little bit low. There's some running backs ahead of him like Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones where you could see the volume plays happening with those guys. I just think the upside of J.K. Dobbins compared to those two guys is so much higher, so I would be taking J.K. Dobbins over those guys, and he's my second breakout. My third breakout we're going to be talking about today is Drake London. Drizzy Drake. You've been hearing me if you've been on the channel and you've been subscribed, which hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I've been talking about Drake London as a buy for me in Dynasty and in redraft fantasy football because a lot of people are saying, well, only Kyle Pitts or Drake London can survive in this offense, and they haven't gotten a quarterback upgrade. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to put those myths to bed. If we look at Drake London in his rookie season, only put up 10.5 fantasy points per game. Wide receiver 43 wasn't great, but commanded 117 targets. 117 targets as a rookie in an offense that was absolutely failing. Most of the year he had Marcus Mariota throwing the ball, who was doing a ton of read option. And then of course when Desmond Ridder took over, that's when the targets really started to come forward. So now with Desmond Ridder as the year 2 starter, they add Bijan Robinson in the backfield. Hopefully that's really going to start opening up the offense because we saw how electric Cordell Patterson was or Tyler Algier was last year. I don't think drafting Bijan Robinson is going to hurt Drizzy Drake and his metrics. I don't think Kyle Pitts being fully healthy and playing a season alongside Drake London is going to hurt him. All that's going to do, that's going to open up more one-on-one coverages for Drake London down the field. 72 receptions last season. We could easily see Drake London get into that 100 reception category. We're talking about 1,100 yards. We're talking about a guy who had a 29.4% target share percentage, which put him as the wide receiver 5 on the season. Guys, he's an alpha level wide receiver. We got to be taking him, especially when you're able to get him in the 4th or 5th rounds of your redraft leagues. Boys, he's going to break out. It's just a matter of time. Is this a year? I think it's a year for Drake London, and so he is my 3rd breakout that I'm drafting everywhere this season. This one's going to surprise a lot of people. My number 4 breakout is going to be Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has just absolutely been forgotten, and it is sad for me to see, but it's great for all of us in underdog drafts that are drafting him late. The accolades always go to Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson as top-level fantasy football options in 2023. But Dak Prescott, as much as a few years ago when he was going at the top, has somehow been forgotten. He had that foot injury. We're back in 2020. He only played 5 games, but in those 5 games, averaged 27.9 fantasy points per game. The year before that, put up 21.7 fantasy points per game, put him as the QB3. In 2021, QB9 on a fantasy points per game basis, and then last year fell off with 17.8 fantasy points per game. Now, what happened last season? All of a sudden, CeeDee Lamb steps up to be the alpha. Dalton Schultz knick-knacked a little bit in the year. And Michael Gallup didn't step up into that wide receiver 2 role that the Cowboys had hoped for. For me, a lot of issues were also happening with the play calling with Kellen Moore. Now we move into this season where Mike McCarthy has taken over the play calling duties, and they brought in Brandon Cooks. And I know Brandon Cooks, as someone who just made a video about him a few days ago, super underrated but Brandon Cooks, anytime he gets on the field, he is a top 25 wide receiver in fantasy. So imagine him paired with CeeDee Lamb. They no longer have Dalton Schultz, so we got 2 up-and-coming tight ends with Luke Schumacher and Jake Ferguson. You still got Tony Pollard in the backfield. I'm excited to see what Dak Prescott does. I think if the running game isn't as electric because of the fact that they don't have a 2-headed monster like they once did, we could easily see Dak Prescott start to cook, and I wouldn't be surprised of a top 5 quarterback finish. And the thing is, you're not even having to get Dak Prescott in drafting him in the top 5. Currently, right now in underdog draft, Dak Prescott is going off as QB12. QB12, that feels like an absolute steal. I'm telling you right now, I am taking Dak Prescott everywhere at QB12, with the hopes that he does end up being that top 5 quarterback. I hear the haters starting to say, Caleb, well, anyone in the top 12 quarterbacks can turn it into a top 5. But I think Dak Prescott has proven before in sample sizes that he has elite level points per game metrics when he's able to cook, when he's fully healthy. So I'm excited to see what happens with Dak Prescott this year, and he is my 4th breakout player for 2023 fantasy football. My 5th and final player. So if you stayed to this, I appreciate you so much. Thanks so much for staying till the last player is going to be Greg Dulcich. Now, Greg Dulcich, I'll put up these 2 tweets right here. Made a video about him about a month ago. We talked about these 2 tweets about how he has elite level metrics as a rookie tight end. Now, what is happening into year 2? You have Sean Payton taking over the Denver Broncos system. You have Russ hopefully going to start cooking again. And all the reports, all the metrics point to Greg Dulcich as an elite level rookie producer, which puts him in territories like Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram, Vernon Davis, elite level tight end prospects and elite level tight end producers that at some point in their career, they absolutely blew up. In Denver Broncos, we could say Jerry Jeudy is the alpha, but Courtland Sutton hasn't stepped up to the plate. And so I think Greg Dulcich has an argument to be made that he could be the wide receiver 2 or second option in the receiving game. Javonte Williams is coming off that torn ACL. You still have Samaje Perine, who they just signed. So the running game might not necessarily be up to par with where they want it to be. So they might have to throw the ball a little bit more. Let Russ finally start to cook. Sean Payton loves his tight ends. There's this myth that Russ and tight ends don't work. We can think right back Jimmy G in Seattle, first year, had a great year fantasy football-wise. And Sean Payton with Jimmy G. We have legit proof that he loves alpha level tight ends, and I think Greg Dulcich could definitely get there. And the best part about Greg Dulcich getting there is you don't even have to draft him as your tight end 1. He's currently going off on underdog drafts as the tight end 14. And right there in the tight end 7 to 14 range, there's a bunch of guys that it's just a mumble jumble. So we could easily see Greg Dulcich finishing as a top 5 tight end. Now, we always say every year, it's really not that hard. But if you get someone like that, that is an elite level game changer for your fantasy football team. So Greg Dulcich is another guy I'm planning on as a breakout player for 2023 fantasy football. If you like this video, hit that subscribe button. Helps me out a ton. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.